What's going on there, fellas? Welcome back to our road to a 405 overhead press. It is the night before the training session, so you guys will be joining me tomorrow. Just wanted to make a little pitch of something that you guys would think is interesting. Right now, we're in kind of a swing of lower volume, very logbook heavy training, where we're selecting more stable exercises to make sure that the target muscle is the rate limiter. I think a very effective style of training, more on the strength side of things. We're going to get to this why. People say, well, all training is strength training. This is strength training by definition, right? The muscle gets stronger, bigger and stronger, and it contracts and it creates more force. But when people talk about strength training colloquially, they mean that there's some implication of transferability, that we're going to be better at tasks, novel tasks, not just the specific tasks that we've done. And I think that people say, oh, if you leg press, you get really good at leg pressing. If you squat, you get really good at squatting. True, you get good at the task you do, but there is some lack of uniformity in the direction of that, right? The leg presser is going to be a pretty poor squatter, but the squatter is going to be at least an okay leg presser, right? So in having to challenge more stability, having to challenge a wider variety of muscle groups, yes, we maybe trade away slight bits of effectiveness for pure hypertrophy outcomes, but we get maybe an increase in transferability. And that's not to say scale instability to the moon, because then it becomes really ineffective training, right? Just stand on a Bosu ball and tell me how big your legs get. But I think there's a very cool training style of taking those same tenets of lower volume, very logbook heavy, but then selecting those exercises that have the other rate limiters, right? Instead of strapping in with our belt buckle, we do the single arm dumbbell row and we get the secondary benefit of this big anti-rotation strengthening effect in our obliques. Or we do the bent over row and we get this secondary strength we're building isometrically in the low back, having to hold that position. And that makes for a very big guy, maybe leaving a little bit of gains on the table, maybe being a little bit more fatigued than you would be otherwise, but it does lead you to be able to take up new tasks a little quicker. Or at least that's my pitch. I think that's a cool way of training, is taking these low volume Dorian Yates adjacent training methods, but then applying them to these more strength oriented exercises. I think it creates a unique and powerful physical package, and it's cool and fun, which I would argue is quite important for actually sticking with it and doing it for long enough for it to actually do anything. All right, what's going on, boys? Welcome back to our road to a 405 overhead press. You're now joining me the next day for the actual overhead day. A little nervous. We got 350 as the scheduled weight, and I can count the number of times I've gone to 350 on the strict press before on one hand. Hopefully, if today goes really good, we'll like double the total number of times I've ever done 350. So went to bed early, did all my mobility, which usually I don't think mobility outside of keeping your T-spine moving is like super important for upper, until I got really, really heavy. And then even upper, I'm like, all right, stretch out my triceps, stretch out my shoulders, stretch out my lats, just let me move a little bit more efficiently. Because I would say if you're functioning on bare minimum mobility, the only way you can move is the way you can get to the bar. But if you have a bit of a surplus, you could select from like 3 different start positions and you can use the one that's strongest for you, right? Scale that really extreme weightlifting, that can make a massive difference. Strict press, it's not the most important thing in the world, but I was getting to the point now that I'm pushing the body weight up hard for these final 5 weeks that I'm starting to get really restricted in the shoulder, especially from being sore all the time. So I'm just taking a little bit more time to stretch out the upper before my upper days, akin to what I do on my lower body days, where I stretch the shit out of my lower body before I squat or deadlift. That feels pretty good. All right, we're not quite at the weights where we like lock into super focus. So I'll tell you guys something I was thinking about this morning. I'm considering trying to like rethink how I use Instagram, because when I first started, Instagram was newer and it was considered very novel and cool for a relatively advanced lifter to just have a pure training log. I remember following like Dan Green and lots of guys, and all they would do is just put like, here's what I did today, or at least here's the highlight of the week or whatever it is. And all of those kind of thriving and getting people some notoriety. I would say the algorithm looks very different nowadays than it did back then, to where a pure training log approach is probably kind of put by the wayside. I like what YouTube rewards a lot more than what I like what Instagram rewards, but in my efforts to become a rich guy, like you guys hear me yapping about, figure I should probably do what the Sika guy's done and tailor my content type to each platform and give it a go. I don't know. I'm tired of being poor. Being rich sounds cooler. So put some thought into, like, it's the same thing with YouTube. There's a happy middle ground between doing what I think is actually interesting in videos I would actually watch, and also kind of chasing the algo a little bit. And I think there's a sweet spot that you can land where you're making good content that's still rewarded proportionately. I feel like there's probably a way I can go about revamping my approach to Instagram to make it good. So that way, eventually I can get one of those terrible sponsorships where you just get free product. I'd take even that. Send me some free, I don't know, protein powder. I'll eat it. All right, let's give it a go. 255 on the bar. Shit, I don't know, 115 kilos, let's call it. Ooh, feeling good. All right, I used a bit of calf drive on that second one, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a big deal. But for me it is, because I don't want to do that on my 405. Because inevitably people are like, well, actually that was a push press. And then, you know, the people that are my supporters will be like, who the fuck cares? It's 405 pounds. I care. I want it to be to like a semi-indisputable standard. So I'm gonna really have to work on not subconsciously doing that when I'm nervous, because I've drilled allowing myself to calf drive as much as I want for that whole prep for that strongman contest. So now it's just like, if I'm worried, pop it up with the calves a little bit more. So I need to figure out how to hunker into straining for longer in the start position without that just meaning, oh, you know what you could do to get out of straining? Use your calves. So we're gonna see if we can correct that here. Stay a little bit more patient. Oh yeah, that's better. All right, I think we're gonna go for one more set. So, like I said, doubling my total lifetime reps here at 350. I'll see what that looked like on the video. Same thing again, gonna try to fight to hold positions, be diligent, right? Try to build those habits now rather than have to do like multiple tries at the 405 to get one clean enough that I'm happy with, but we shall see. Had a bit of a stressful morning, so I had to practice what I preach, take a minute, think about my training, be like, this is a block of my day for nothing but training. I think that offers a lot of benefits, just having that like time, not thinking about other stuff. It's like I could deal with the fact that it's a stressful day after training. Right now is the road to 405 from the king of the manlets, me. Ugh. All right. Come on, last one. Hips forward. Oh yeah. Whew, I thought I did not have that second one. All right, while we set up for the Smith pressing, I was gonna tell you guys, I've never really done one, because those of you who have been around for a while on the channel know that I started lifting when I was like 140 pounds. Despite what I look like nowadays, definitely naturally a skinnier guy. And when I don't force feed for a couple of days, I tend to lose weight quite quickly. So basically my entire lifting career has been a bulk. I've periodically stopped force feeding for like a week and I'll drop back down. My body composition will kind of reset to a reasonable point and then I'll keep pushing upward. And if I slack, I lose weight. For the first time in my training career, I have done like little cuts, right? So I don't want to say I've never cut. I'll do like a little drop back of 10 pounds, which does not take very long at my size, because those first 10, a lot of that's water, a lot of that's just being a little bit less full in terms of glycogen. So like I'll finish up a block for, let's say, my 600 bench press. And I wanna say I brought my body weight down like 10 to 15 pounds, which sounds like a lot, but really that did not take very long, and it wasn't cutting to the point of having any resistance on the way down. For the first time, I'm actually kind of thinking I wanna do a little bit longer of a cut. Because I've always wanted to get bigger. I've always wanted to get bigger. That's kind of like bigger, stronger, bigger, stronger. Right now, I feel like I need to regather a little bit of my efficiency. As I look back at some of the lifts I hit, I was like 210, 220, 230. I was like, damn, it's crazy I was operating that much smaller of a machine and still lifting that. I want to always feel like that, right? I want to feel like I want to be as big as I can while still having that efficiency, right? Eventually, I want to be like a big 275, 285, and still people are like, damn, he's so much smaller than the other guys that lift that weight. Of course, that's kind of the goal. But right now, kind of excited, chase some cardio goals, get my mobility really good, put some weighted calisthenics in, just as a little bit of a reset to make more room to bulk, because I'm definitely getting to the upper end of where I'm comfortable and where my training goes well. If I push much past this in terms of body fat, my work capacity suffers enough that it's almost a net negative for long-term progression. Of course, in the short term, there's a reason we're doing it. In the short term, I will be stronger for the 405 overhead press by pushing up to a rate of gain into a body fat that doesn't feel great and my work capacity comes down, because I will be stronger, but I wouldn't be able to continue building enough workload to keep making really good gains. So I'm honestly kind of excited to drop down a little bit, get some new thumbnails so I don't have to keep using the same old ones. I don't know, it's interesting, kind of exciting, something I've never done before. I expect it to be quite easy because I'm not gonna take it super far. Of course, even for people who have a propensity for being leaner, cutting eventually gets quite hard. I'm not gonna take it that hard. We're just gonna drop down a little bit and try to get the efficiency back up. But all that cutting stuff is in the future. For the time being, we're still getting fat. Making sure to do half an hour of cardio every day is the worst feeling in the world, is when your work capacity is absolutely nothing. Hate that feeling so much. It feels terrible. So when I'm extra heavy at these weights I don't really feel comfortable at, I do a little extra cardio, if anything, which sure, I have to eat a little bit extra, which is a bit of a chore, but it's worth it to feel less shitty. Still feel shitty, right? I'm definitely like, I'm 100 pounds heavier than I was meant to be, and I can feel it, but man, I feel a lot better when I'm pushing the steady state every single day. I'm getting to the point where the appetite is finally starting to like take even more of a hit. So we're gonna have to break out the strategy given to me by the great Freaky D that I used for the road to 600, which is, I eat stereotypically clean foods to keep my digestion good. But including a lot of cereal was a tip that Dennis gave me, because it's just like, it's a well-digested carbohydrate that's hyper palatable. Whereas, rice is pretty darn palatable, but it's not as much as cereal. So when my appetite's absolutely in the dumpster, I leaned into that for the road to 600. Didn't have to do it for the 880 deadlift because I didn't get my body weight as heavy, but I think it's gonna be cereal time again here soon. So that's fun. All right, well, I have misplaced my Matelli, so that's cool, but we will find it afterward. I don't want to get cold and mess with my performance here. So one weight up from last week. So technically anything is a good result here. We talked about it in the large lads, that's going up on Wednesday. Some exercises, I think it's appropriate to give yourself a runway, meaning like when you get to a new weight increment, leave like 2, 3 in the tank, allow for some easy progression. And some exercises, that's kind of just bitch shit. Like I don't really give myself a runway on tricep extensions. I just, whatever the weight is, I go to fail because I don't think it's that fatiguing. And that's just the easiest way to know your proximity to failure. This is somewhere in between. So we'll probably go pretty close to fail. I don't really feel all that fatigued by it. It's like if this was a big leg press and I moved it in the next increment up, I would give myself a bit of rest because presumably I went quite hard the last week, give myself a little bit of a runway and then build up from there. Don't think I need a big runway on these. We'll go pretty pretty hard here. One. Oh, man. All right, I wanted 10, but 9 it is. I imagine this isn't all that quirky, but goddamn, I put my phone in the dumbest possible places in the gym where I'd be like balanced on top of something in the corner for no fucking reason. And then I throw off my workout looking for it like a fucking idiot. Thankfully, I'm in my garage, so nobody can steal it, which means I'll get around to finding it when I get around to finding it. No pacing being ruined here. All right, I think today I'm gonna do my rears before my laterals. Just 100% intuition based. Feels like I could use a little bit more work on that posterior cuff, which always makes my shoulders feel nice and healthy, especially because we're kind of redlining it with the shoulder work right now. Want to make sure I invest in those. How much do I want to do? How much do I want to get into this? Charles Poliquin, famous strength coach, had this thing where he's like structural symmetry, you know, like front to back being balanced, pushing and pulling, being in some kind of ratio to one another in someone's training program creates this thing called structural symmetry, which makes you more or less likely to get injured. There's no evidence to support structural symmetry per se, but there's also no real robust evidence investigating if it exists, right? So an absence of evidence isn't an evidence of absence. I'm of the belief that you don't need a specific ratio. I think that's completely unfounded of 2 to 1 pulling to pushing. Most elite bench pressers don't have that. Sure, a couple do, but several guys better than them who also don't have shoulder issues don't. So I don't think you can really say that. Though for some people who are really prone to shoulder issues, maybe that's a good prescription. Maybe I've seen it work a couple of times, but in general, I don't subscribe to that there's any specific ratio, but I think if we let one part develop infinitely and we don't train the antagonist at all, I do think that ends up resulting in getting banged up. So that's why I like the inclusion of, I've always believed that like investing in rear delts is a deposit into the bank account that is your shoulder health. So very early on, I just started doing, anytime I press, I do face pulls. That was like one of the first things I taught Kirsten was just like, hey, you warm up for bench, just do some face pulls. Helped me a ton when I had hurt my shoulders a couple of times early into my training career, because ultimately it was because my bench technique was dog shit and I was going really heavy all the time. But when I started investing into that rear delt bank account, my shoulders felt a lot more healthy. So we're gonna do those before the laterals, which are helpful. They train the rotator cuff, because anything when we move the shoulder trains the rotator cuff. They help train that little bit of upward rotation. They're a good overhead accessory, but I would put them as less important than the rears. So we're gonna bang out the rears. I'll just show you my last set, 3 work sets here. Maybe you're gonna do a couple of laterals, energy dependent, and then we're gonna finish up with our heavy shrugs, mostly just because I like doing those. They're fun and cool, and I wanna do a lot of plates. So we're gonna keep adding half a plate a week for a couple more weeks and see where we end up. All right, final of 3 sets here on the rears. My goal is a clean 10 reps. This is definitely one of those exercises that the form can get a little bit dynamic, and I don't necessarily mind that as a way of kind of evening out the strength curve, but we're looking for a pretty strict 10 here, and I will be quite pleased with that. All right, we'll call that 10 and 2 partials. If there wasn't a camera, maybe I would count the 11th one as a rep, but we'll put that in the notes. Awesome. Incremental improvement secured. On to the next exercise. All right, all done warming up. Did some double overhand shrugs in the warm-up, which is just one of my favorite ways to sneak in grip work. It's also just one of my favorite grip exercises for no reason other than that I enjoy it. 5 plates on the bar. The goal is like a nice little 12 piece, and we'll go up heavier next week. That's the plan at least. I thought, hey, I wonder if I should put my belt on for this. And usually if I think that, it means I should definitely put my belt on, because I'm very comfortable leaving it off on stuff. So if my little voice in the back of my head says, hey, maybe you should put your belt on, I listen to it. I'm sure someone is going to watch that and be like, whoa, look at that. He's bouncing it. What a waste of time ego lifting. I find them very productive. My cop out is that I'm a strongman. And this is actually pretty helpful for a variety of things in strongman. I also, secretly, just think it's a good exercise, period, point blank. All right, what's going on there, fellas? My apologies. I did not bring the backup battery, so the camera died, but you have my word. I pinky promised you guys that I did my 3 sets of lateral raises after that. Called it a day. Got to start resting up for some heavy SSB squats tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to. Me and the great, let me see if I can show you, the great Coach Klong are in the office for a bit of a late one. Gonna wrap up work. I got the Patreon Q&A up. Here's your reminder, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. I'm hoping, 8:30 maybe. I'm hoping I have a little bit of time to play some games. I got the emulator on my phone, so I'm playing Pokemon Platinum there, and then I'm still playing Octopath Traveler over here, and that's kind of my plan for the wind down, because I told you guys last time, maybe it's a cope, because I just want to play some games, because I haven't in a few years. But man, it really seems to, I sleep better when I've had something that just kind of is like a brain is completely occupied by XYZ type deal. So leave a like if you liked the video. I had planned to do a little bit more with this one, one of these mixed media, like talk to you before, show you the workout, show you some stuff after, and then I forgot. So we'll continue to work on this.